Okay, it's our pleasure to have Guy and Abir here at Idiap. So Dr. Guy Fagherazzi is the director of the Department of Precision Health at the Luxembourg Institute of Health and leads the Deep Digital Phenotyping Research Unit. His research focuses on harnessing digital technologies and AI to develop innovative digital biomarkers for chronic disease monitoring with a particular emphasis on diabetes. With a background in mathematics and epidemiology, Dr. Fagherazzi has authored over 300 scientific publications and is a recognized leader in digital health research. His work aims to advance precision health by integrating large-scale data from digital technologies, voice analysis, and digital phenotyping methods. And we have Dr. Abir Elbéji, is a researcher specializing in development of AI-driven vocal biomarkers for monitoring chronic disease symptoms. She is postdoctoral researcher in the Deep Digital Phenotyping Research Unit at the Luxembourg Institute of Health, focusing on voice analysis to improve remote patient monitoring and personalized healthcare. Dr. Elbézi has contributed to the Coli Voice Project, a global study identifying vocal biomarkers for various health conditions. Her work has led to voice-based algorithms for predicting type 2 diabetes and monitoring respiratory health. She holds an engineering degree in biology from INSAT, Tunisia, and a PhD from the University of Luxembourg. It's a great pleasure to have Guy, and we came to know through a cost network
Exactly.
first,
Yeah.
and we also have submitted a cost proposal, again focusing precisely on how voice could be used as a biomarker in health domain. So it's my pleasure to welcome them both here, and the platform is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for hosting us. It's my great pleasure to be here at Idiap today. And with my colleague, Dr. Abir Elbéji, we will be very happy to share with you what we are doing in our labs in Luxembourg. The first question I have for you is, who knows what precision health is? Do you think someone has a clear definition or understanding of what precision health means? Yeah, so 3. Okay, 4 maybe. All right. I will have the first part of the talk, and then I will hand over to Abir for the second part. The first part will be really about precision health in general and how we use digital technology and how we try to apply AI methods to improve precision health projects. And then we will focus specifically on the use case of voice. And Abir will take you through the different projects and how we use voice and AI for precision health approaches. All right? Let's start by having a step back. When we think about health in general, we have many factors influencing our health. When we talk about a disease, it's not just the disease who is influencing your health and your well-being. The factors you are exposed to, like the pollutants, your lifestyle, your socio-demographic background, your age, your gender, all of these factors play a huge role on how you feel and how your health can be defined. And I think this is very important when we want to develop precision health strategies, is how to integrate all of these dimensions into a holistic approach. And now with the technologies we have at our disposal, we have many resources and source of data that we can use and leverage to characterize the human health. This is an example of, in the case of diabetes, which is my main research focus, there are many information from the connected devices, from the smartphones, from all the sensors we can have on the patients. And they are generating a lot of data by design on a daily basis because of how they need to manage their diabetes, for instance. So the challenge now is to integrate these sources with all the traditional biomedical research data. And AI is a powerful mean for that. All right, if we talk about precision health or precision medicine, which is the little brother of precision health, right now, when we think about medicine and health, we are more or less on the left part. It's a one-size-fits-all medicine where you have a drug for a condition and everyone receives more or less the same drug, if we summarize. This is by design it's working on average. But the challenge is really go to the right part of the slide where we want to have precision strategies, where we have for a given individual the right drug or the right treatment or the right intervention. But we are not there yet. We have an in-between step that we need to take, which is to go towards more stratified medicine or stratified health. That means identifying markers or risk factors that can help to stratify the population into more homogeneous groups in which you will have better interventions. So for going up to precision, we need to go to stratification first. And this can be summarized also like this. When you want to show that a drug is working or a new intervention is working, you usually conduct a randomized controlled clinical trial where you have a group with the intervention, the drug, and a control group, the placebo group, and you show that on average, the drug is working. But we all know that the average patient doesn't exist. And on average, that means there is a huge error for each individual in the study or in the intervention. The challenge now will be to define these groups where you can have specific interventions, specific drugs, or specific targets that will work on average much better than in the general population. And this will help to reduce the error and the biases you can have in the population. And if we go even further than this, having new digital data, like the sensors, the continuous glucose monitoring devices for patients with diabetes, the smartphone, the apps, all of these technologies, they can help to characterize and refine the groups we are working on up to the point that we have a full personalization, a full precision health approach. So that's really the objective, the ultimate end game. So precision health, now we can have a definition. Precision health basically is the right treatment or the right care for the right person at the right time. The time dimension is usually forgotten. And we can now have this precision health approaches because there is a convergence between different research fields. The research field of precision medicine, which is very much focused towards an individual, a given patient. You can think about having very specific drugs that are very costly, that works for a tiny portion of patients with a specific gene mutation with cancer, for instance. That's precision medicine, centered towards the individual. On the other hand, you have population health strategies, which, like my background in epidemiology, we are working at the populational level. We try to identify determinants, risk factors, developing prevention strategies. And now, these days, these two worlds are coming together. And this is only possible because we have enabling technologies that can bring the two worlds together and make sure we can use all the data the patients and the population can generate, use AI approaches to analyze the data, and using the telemedicine digital health solutions we have at our disposal. So that's really the situation right now. Everything is coming together for more precision health strategies. One way to use these digital technologies in precision health is to develop what we call digital biomarkers, like biomarkers that are captured digitally that can help to monitor a condition or symptoms. And there are specific frameworks, like research frameworks, to define and develop digital biomarkers. The one we are using at the LIH in Luxembourg is the one that is developed by the Digital Medicine Society, where you make sure that you go from defining the meaningful aspects of health and you go down up to the clinical endpoints you want to work with, using feedback and inputs from the patients directly. It's a step-by-step process, and any digital biomarker in the end should be able to be used for remote evaluation, like screening. Can we assess a disease or a symptom remotely? Can we monitor the patient over time? This is called RPM, remote patient monitoring. Or can we use these digital biomarkers for assessing the effectiveness of a treatment, for instance? So this is the digital biomarker in the broader term. Among all the digital technologies we are working on at the LIH, of course, we are working a lot on voice, and we develop digital vocal biomarkers. And this is what will be presented in the second part of the presentation. Just a few words now on who we are. The LIH, or Luxembourg Institute of Health, is a biomedical and translational research organization. We are roughly 500 members now, coming from 55 different nationalities. So really, Luxembourg is very small, but it's a hub for international researchers. We have 3 main research departments: the Department of Infection and Immunity, the Department of Cancer Research, and the Department of Precision Health that I'm leading. It's basically 90 people in this department where we develop digital solutions, digital health projects for precision health. We are working in clinical research, epidemiological research, and public health. And we have some specific focus on digital health, lifestyle, nutrition a lot. We have a lot of projects around nutrition for health, biomarkers, socioeconomic factors, and human biomonitoring. In the lab, we are in the different labs. In the Department of Precision Health, we have 10 research units. There, you can see the PIs over there. And we are working across diseases. We are not bound to one specific health outcome like diabetes, but we are also working on cancer, cardiovascular, neurodegenerative disorders, mental health, and many others. And across all the research units, data-driven and digital technologies are the the transversal research line. We try to integrate more and more digital technologies, data and AI-driven projects into whatever we do for research. And among this 10 research units, there is my lab, which is called Deep Digital Phenotyping, or DDP in short, where we have roughly 10 to 13 people, staff members in the lab, and we develop digital and vocal biomarkers. We develop digital phenotyping approaches, which is basically using digital technologies for epidemiology. And we combine AI and data-driven approaches for stratification and developing precision health strategies, mostly for patients with type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Just a public service announcement in my talk. We are now at LIH opening a new position on AI for health. I don't want to steal any good researcher from Idiap, of course, but if you know in your network, or if you think someone could be interested, this is a position we will be opening this year. It will be funded by the research funding agency in Luxembourg. And basically, we are looking now for a good candidate to come up and work with us on a research program on AI for healthcare. There are 2 main research ideas right now to develop research on multimodal AI or synthetic health data generation, but it's not exclusively related to this. It can be also anything related to AI. And for the candidate that will be selected, if is funded by the FNR, the research agency, he or she will be able to get his or her own lab and 3 to 4 million euros for 5 years to develop the research strategy. So this is really a focus for us, for LIH, to increase the capacities for AI. So if you are interested, or at least if you know someone, please reach out to me so that we can work this out. End of the public service announcement and the advertisement. Coming back to the projects we are developing, for digital biomarkers, voice is a very powerful medium. We usually say that voice is the new blood because we think that many information can be derived and extracted from voice recordings, and we want to develop voice as a biomarker for health. Why voice? Well, some of you are working on voice, so you are very familiar with this, I presume, but it's a very natural communication way. It's a very natural communication source. It's very energy efficient, user-friendly. It's much easier to convey information via voice than via a boring or burdensome questionnaire that is typically used in epidemiology or clinical research. Now, with everyone's smartphone, we can collect voice recordings, so it's very low-cost data collections, and it conveys a lot of emotional and health-related information if you know how to analyze it and how to extract it. So we tend to say that your health goes through your voice, but we need to really make this a reality now, and we will share with you now how we go about this and how we make sure we can one day implement these technologies into clinical practice. Basically, voice is a direct mirror of your health because disease physiology alters the acoustic, the temporality, and the linguistic features of your voice. If you start here, you have the disease or the symptom, it will have a direct mechanical impact on different organs like the brain, the lungs, the heart, the muscles that are responsible for the voice production. And this will generate some very subtle changes in your voice that may not be something that you can hear with your human ears, but can be detected now with all the progress we have in terms of audio signal processing and AI to analyze. We can extract many audio features from voice recording and then feed this into typical machine or deep learning algorithms to predict what was the initial trigger, like the disease or the symptom in the first place. This is exactly what we try to achieve. A vocal biomarker, some of you are, again, very familiar with this, but basically it's a signature, a feature, or a combination of features from your voice audio signal that is associated with a clinical condition, be it a disease or a symptom. If you are new to the field, and if you want to deep dive into it, I would highly recommend this review we have written a few years ago that describes the entire field and the challenges and how to go about this in the future. So this is a nice way to enter the field if you're new to it. Some applications of vocal biomarkers. You can expect to develop vocal biomarker for disease screening, and we will share with you with Abir an example of how we can detect type 2 diabetes using voice. Disease diagnosis for some specific outcomes like neurodegenerative disorders like Parkinson's disease. We can maybe one day expect to have a real diagnosis using voice. Monitoring treatment effectiveness, as I said, during a clinical trial, remote patient monitoring to develop telemonitoring solutions, or digitization of clinical trials. And this is feasible because we can integrate vocal biomarker algorithms into digital solutions, like in clinical research, having digital clinical endpoints, or in everyday life for patients or populations, we can have medical devices, digital health solutions, or even smartphone apps where you can have voice analysis. Telehealth systems and augmented consultations are two main avenues to implement voice analysis and AI in clinical practice, either remotely monitoring the patient's health using voice or during consultations with the clinician and the patient. The market is also very booming right now. The trend is, the market is growing at a very high speed now. This year, in 24, it was $5 billion, more or less, worldwide. And the voice technology in the healthcare market now is really booming up to 21.67 billion in 2032, according to the predictions. So it's really trendy. And I think it's really important to reflect on where we come from. In 2021, vocal biomarker or voice AI technologies, they were over there. At the very beginning of, you all know this hype cycle curve. Vocal biomarkers in 21, they were seen as rising expectations, rising technologies. It was a very emerging field, and a lot of progress was expected. Now, that was 4 years ago. In your opinion now, I want to have your opinion on this. Where do you think we are right now in 2025? If we take the same hype cycle as was presented in 21, do you think we are still over there at the very beginning? Do you think we are reaching a peak of inflated expectations? Do you think we have now a truth of disillusionment or slope of enlightenment or plateau of productivity? What do you think, guys? We can maybe raise the hands. Who thinks we are still in A? All right, 4. In B? Okay. Who thinks we are in C now? Okay. D? All right. And E? No one. Okay. My perspective on this is that we are here. We have a peak of inflated expectations right now. And I will try to explain you why. Since COVID, there were many hype on much hype on voice and voice AI and voice technologies and vocal biomarkers, etc. But there was an overselling. If you look in the publications or even in the news, in the press releases we have all seen, for instance, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was people from the US who developed some AI algorithms, very cool, very nice proof of concept. But the hype associated with the news was way too strong because this was never implemented. The challenges around the data they used to train their AI model was very important. And they claimed that they could detect with 98.5 of accuracy COVID-19 from asymptomatic COVID-19 from people without COVID-19 with just a few cough recordings. Of course, this is very promising. It's a very cool technology, but the hype associated with it was way too big compared to what they could actually deliver. If you look today, if you browse the internet and you look for startup companies developing vocal biomarkers and voice AI technologies, some of them claim that they can detect multiple conditions with just a single 10-second speech sample. Of course, this is not possible, even today with the best technology. This is overselling. This is just to get the attention of VC to raise more money, but absolutely not feasible in today's research world. No way. So we are still here, basically. Some inflated expectations, or people are overselling what we can achieve right now with voice and AI. And we need to really get back to the basics and develop high quality research. And I will try to show you how. There are two ways to approach this now. Either we continue the same way. Everyone is developing their own little data set, very biased. They train their AI models. They reach 95 or 98% of accuracy. They have cool press releases, but it's never implemented in practice because it doesn't work. So this will lead us to step C. There is one way to bypass this, which is to go more together, to work together across disciplines and develop international guidelines and standardization, master protocols to make sure we increase the transparency and we make sure we increase the reproducibility of whatever we do with voice and AI. So the challenge really to remove the biases or to reduce the biases is to get better data to train better AI models using voice. The challenges, if we summarize the challenges now, it's a lot of bias in the data sets that we use right now in the literature, reproducibility crisis like any AI-related fields, access to high-quality data. I will show you some example how we try to fill the gap now, and it's still a wild, wild west because there are no standardization. Everyone is doing its own method, and it's just a mess. And the devil is in the details usually, but for voice AI, the devil is in the data, really. And I think maybe these are articles you know, but I really wanted to show this one because this is something we try to follow. Every step, there are risks of having huge biases from the research problem formulation, the data collection. You can induce many biases in there. How you pre-process the data, how you validate and develop the models, and how you implement this at the end with potential drifts from the target population compared to the initial data you use to train the AI models. So how do we go about this? How do we reduce the biases? How do we increase the data quality? This is the challenge. And of course, as again, any other AI-related fields, we want to open this black box. We want to make this more explainable for clinicians and patients so that we increase the trust in the voice AI technology. So it's not just about model training AI, it's really about how we think in the future, how to implement these technologies. All right, two examples before I leave the floor to Abir. I wanted to mention two initiatives that are aiming to improve the data quality when it comes to voice. The first one is the one driven by us at the LIH. It's called Colli Voice. It's a worldwide multilingual audio data bank where we have voice recordings and clinical data associated with the voice recordings to annotate and train AI models. It's used to screen vocal biomarker candidates across diseases. We are really working on health in general, and we have many information about the symptoms, the disease, the drugs, the lifestyle, the perception of disease and perception of health about the study participants. And you can see that we are covering right now many languages because, of course, language is a huge factor for voice AI. English, French, German, Spanish, Portuguese, and Arabic are covered now. And we have participants from all over the world, from the 5 continents, donating their voice for research. And this is becoming now one of the unique resources worldwide to get real-life voice recordings. It's not controlled. It's on everyone's smartphones or tablets or laptops. And that means it's in the wild. And we decided to go this way because this is how we foresee the implementation in the future for some of the vocal biomarker candidates we develop. And basically, there was an animation here, but it's a PDF now. We have developed a pipeline to go from the voice data collection up to the implementation at the LIH. And you will see in the presentation that is following by Abir how we go about each step and how we develop vocal biomarkers. We are coming together also because we want to develop best practices, guidelines on voice and AI implementation. And we have started an international network, which is called eVoiceNet. And this is what Matthew mentioned in the introduction. We have now more than 70 plus partners worldwide, mostly driven in Europe, but also internationally, where we have academic researchers, clinicians, pharma companies, CROs, regulatory bodies, representatives, working together and exchanging, networking to develop good practices for voice AI. And the last thing I wanted to mention is on the other side of the Atlantic, there is the Bridge to AI project led by Yael Ben-Soussan, and they are developing very highly controlled and very high quality data sets to train vocal biomarkers. They have released last year their first data set, and they are bound by the NIH and by the funding to release every year a very highly controlled data set, and everyone can access the data. So it's very straightforward to work with it. So if you are interested, I strongly suggest to have a look at the Bridge to AI Voice website. And if you are interested by voice and AI, there is one event to go this year, like every year, is the Voice AI Symposium in Tampa in the US. This year it's in April. There is the symposium for 2 days, and then there is a hackathon to play with the data they are releasing. So this is a very important consortium for the field, for the ecosystem of voice AI. All right, now this introduction is done. I will leave the floor to Abir. I think we just need to make a break to change the microphone, and then at the end we can have, of course, a Q&A discussion.
C'est bon? Hello? Hello. Can you hear? No. Personne. Ah. C'est bon? You hear me well? Okay, great. It's a nice example of the challenges that I will be mentioning for voice AI later on. So hello everyone, my name is Abir Elbéji. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Luxembourg Institute of Health. And I will start by introducing voice, audio signal, how to develop vocal biomarkers. But later I will show two examples. The first one is disease screening for type 2 diabetes, and the second one is, I will move the, yeah. And the second one is for respiratory quality of life monitoring. First, it's important to know how our voice is produced. There are many organs that are principal in the voice production, starting from the brain that coordinates the muscle movements in order to produce the voice. Then the muscles in the physiological level reacts to create the vibration to the vocal folds. And then these vibrations are articulated through our mouth and tongues, lips, etc. in order to create the speech. And here we're talking about the acoustic level, and we have the voice audio signal. The three main domains, of course, they're only domains of the audio. The first one is the time domain, of course. It's a waveform, the amplitude over time. There's the frequency domain, of course, because our voice is a sum of frequencies. So we can get it we can get a spectrum, which is the magnitude over frequency from a Fourier transform. And finally, since the frequencies, the sum of frequencies are varying over time, we can talk about the frequency time domain. And here we can have it through the short time Fourier transform, and we can get the spectrogram, which is the frequency over time. This is just a small introduction. I think most of you know about this. Now, how we can develop a vocal biomarker. The first one, we will start from data collection, data processing, data analysis to the use cases that I will be presenting later on. To start the data collection, we of course need voice recordings that can be of three different types. The first one is called nonverbal vocalizations, where people can record their breathing or coughing recordings. The second is vowel or syllable tasks, where people can maintain vowel phonation for as long as possible, like the or like the pataka task. And finally, the verbal task, where people can read a text or engage in a conversational task with a psychologist for mental health, for example. We annotate these voice recordings with clinical data, and for this we collect demographics and lifestyle data. We collect clinical histories like the diseases or symptoms, the disease diagnosis or treatments, and finally symptoms that we can collect thanks to clinically validated questionnaires. Now that in Colli Voice, as Guy mentioned, we are collecting real-life setting voice recordings. For this, we are facing a lot of challenges that can vary from the hardware itself. Imagine that now I'm using this microphone. If it was in a very bad quality, you wouldn't hear me that much well. The software embedded in the hardwares, like in our smartphones, there are several processing tools or steps, yes, like compression, for example, that can create different voice recording, that can influence the recording quality. The environment that we are collecting or recording our voice in, if it's outside, if we are like, there's a car behind or whatever. And the compliance. Yes, since the PDF is generated now, there are some missing words, but believe me, I wrote it correctly. So compliance meaning we ask the participants, for example, in Colli Voice to record in a safe, calm environment, but also to have a good distance to the mic. Now that like I'm talking like this and I'm talking too much like this, it's super different. And this is also a challenge that we need to address and take it into consideration. Are you hearing me? Okay. Okay. So for this, as I said, we need to take into consideration these different challenges and ensure good quality, not really impacted by these kind of biases, to ensure the AI readiness of the voice recordings and to ensure the development of reliable vocal biomarkers. For this, within our work at the lab, we have developed a technology to process real-life settings voice recordings, taking into account vast problems that we could identify thanks to the Collide voice data. This is an IP-protected technology now, and it's it got funded by the FNR Jump, which is meant for funding research projects and taking them from academia to industry and create LIH spin-off hopefully soon. So if you are interested in using such a technology, we are open to beta testers. This is how we say it? Yes. So if you are really interested, please contact us, and it would be a nice way to collaborate. Now that we ensured that we have good quality of voice recordings, the processing step is done, we will extract the voice features. And for this, there are several open source tools like the Parcel Mouth, the OpenSmile, Librosa, but also we can use pre-trained algorithms on audios. I'm aware that you're already using Wave2Vec, Whisper, etc. For the voice features that we can extract, they can be characterized in 4 different categories. The first one is the source features that can describe the voice production origin, mainly the airflow from the lungs through the glottis. Second one is the formant features that describes the resonant frequencies from the vocal to the nasal tracts. The third one is spectral features that describes the frequency distribution at specific moment of the speech. And lastly, the prosodic features that describes the rhythm and intonation of the speech. For the pre-trained algorithms, here I try to sum up the main ones, but I could include Whisper, for example. There's the VGJ, Yamnet, OpenL3, BiolA, BiolS, Wave2Vec that are pre-trained on large data sets. As you know, they are mainly CNN-based algorithms, and the input of the sample rate is 16 kilohertz usually, like conventionally. Now, for the AI approaches that are used for vocal biomarker identification, it can span from extracting voice features that, as I described, selecting the most meaningful ones, depending, of course, on the outcome, train the machine learning algorithm, and then we can have the outputs. Or we can use the spectrograms that can also be considered as images. It's an image representation of the speech. We train CNN-based algorithm or LSTMs from scratch, or use transfer learning techniques. And for this, we can fine-tune the pre-trained algorithms or extract the audio embeddings to train machine learning algorithms. Now, once we have very nice performance of this vocal biomarker in our outcome, and we are sure of, and we validated it on an external data set, we also need to validate it clinically. So once we have a clinically validated vocal biomarker, we can think of integrating it into devices for several applications like clinical research, epidemiology, and clinical practice, for remote patient monitoring, disease diagnosis, or severity grading too. In Collide Voice, we have different applications to use voice, since we are collecting data basically on a vast amount of clinical data on diseases. We are working on mental health, like for depressive symptoms. We are working on respiratory quality of life, smoking status detection, and the type 2 diabetes screening. That if you want to have a deeper look into it, you can check our latest paper that got released, but I will already present it now. Why we are interested in type 2 diabetes? It's not because it's GI's main research focus, but it's because of its prevalence. Since 800 million million people now are living with type 2 diabetes, but 50% of them are still undiagnosed. It's surprising, of course, I know that type 2 diabetes, what's the relationship between type 2 diabetes and voice, but previous studies have shown the key factors that can influence the voice production for people with type 2 diabetes, like the muscle neuropathy, like the acidic reflux that can damage the larynx, the chronic hyperglycemia that can damage the lung functions, and respiratory muscle fatigue. Now, what we've done, we have collected data and analyzed data from 607 US participants, English speakers only, from Colive Voice. We analyzed the text reading recordings. We worked on the gender stratified, men and female, independently, in order to reduce the gender bias, but also since men and women perceive diseases and symptoms and comorbidities in a different way, not only on voice. Then, for the data processing, we extracted and scaled from multiple tools voice features, but here I will be only describing the results that we got from the BioLess embeddings, because that was the best performing one. We reduced dimensionality. We trained several machine learning algorithms to assess the performances. We then evaluated the performances with a stratified 5-fold cross-validation. And lastly, we actually, after having and selecting the best algorithm, we stratified the performance of this algorithm into different subgroups with different comorbidities, lifestyle factors, like, for example, the age that can influence voice, but also living with type 2 diabetes, like fatigue, like depression, like hypertension, that can all play a role in this uniqueness of voice of people with type 2 diabetes. We have also compared our performances with the American Diabetes Association score. It's a score that is developed in USA it's a questionnaire with seven questions. It's about age, gender, BMI, history of having type 2 diabetes in your family, etc. And it's calculating the risk if you are higher or a low risk to develop type 2 diabetes. So these are the main results. For the algorithms in men and women, we found fair to good performances in detecting type 2 diabetes with an AUC of 71% and 75% for women and men respectively. For the key subgroups that we have identified, we've noticed that for both genders, the presence of hypertension increases the performance of the algorithm to detect type 2 diabetes. Not only that, but for females as well, the age is playing a role where the performance of the algorithms were better in identifying type 2 diabetes, mainly for females over 60 years old. With the agreement that we did with the Bland-Altman analysis, we found a strong agreement with the American Diabetes Association risk score with 96% and 93% for female and male algorithms respectively. This strength and takeaways from this study is that we've used currently, as we know, the largest standardized data set of participants from the USA with real-life recordings. We've studied the type 2 diabetes complexity with this identification of subgroups with enhanced performances in detecting type 2 diabetes. And we've benchmarked against a golden score like the American Diabetes Risk Score that supports that voice analysis can be, or potentially can be, a viable first-line type 2 diabetes screening tool. The limitations of the study was about calculation of the American Diabetes Risk Score because we were missing the physical activity, for example. But this is not really a huge, big limitation since the American Diabetes Association score rely heavily on age and BMI and that we have in our data set. And the population, since it's only limited for English speakers only, and we have lack of diversity in linguistic and cultural background that are essential in living with type 2 diabetes. So for the perspectives, we need to think of generalizing across diverse population to improve robustness, to target early stage type 2 diabetes, because currently we are working only with people living with type 2 diabetes, to incorporate robust and objective measures like the glycemic control, and all of this to enhance early detection and the inclusive, cost-effective diabetes screening for everyone. Now I will be presenting a second application, which is about the respiratory quality of life monitoring. It's also published in the Biomedical Signal Processing and Control journal that you can also have a look in. So for the respiratory quality of life, currently the research is only conducted on respiratory conditions like asthma and COPD, but none of them are conducted on the general respiratory quality of life state of people. For this, we worked with 1,908 participants from the CoLive Voice. We used the questionnaire that is the VQ11 for the respiratory quality of life with a threshold of 22/22 for having impaired respiratory quality of life. We've matched people with and without impaired this metric, respiratory quality of life, and we've analyzed the sustained A vowel phonation. We've also worked with clinical data like the BMI, smoking habits, day and night coughing, chest pain, sore throat, and asthma and COPD if they are diagnosed and if they are reported in the dataset. For the pre-processing, for the voice recordings, we've used the processing pipeline that I've mentioned that is integrated in the VocAlive. For the sociodemographic and clinical data, we've used one-hot encoding that results in 23 features. We analyzed several embeddings and features like the VGJ, OpenL3, BioLay, YAMNet, handcrafted features, and OpenSmile features, and we scaled them. And we reduced the dimensionality using principal component analysis. Then, in order to create the machine learning algorithms for detecting or classifying the respiratory quality of life severity, we trained machine learning separately on extracted features or embeddings, and we trained machine learning algorithms on clinical and sociodemographic data separately. And then, in order to study the effect of or the influence of adding voice to machine learning algorithms trained on clinical data only, if it enhances or decreases the quality, the performances of these machine learning algorithms, we used two different methods. The first one is an early feature-based fusion, where we fused the extracted embeddings or features with the sociodemographic and clinical data and trained them into machine learning algorithms to check their performances. And we tested out the late model based fusion, where we fused or ensembled the machine learning algorithms trained solely on voice extracted features and the sociodemographic and clinical data. Here are the results. In orange, there's the clinical only performances accuracy algorithms. In yellow, there's the voice only performances algorithm, and in the dark gray is the fused algorithms. And we've noticed that the fused models outperform clinical only and voice only features. So combining both algorithms trained on clinical data and machine learning algorithm trained on voice data is outperforming the algorithms trained separately. And the best performing one was algorithm trained with the BioLay embeddings. We've also analyzed, because we trained the algorithms with all the genders together, and we wanted to check if there is a gender difference or bias within the performances, but we didn't find any significant difference. So it's a gender invariant vocal biomarker performance. But we also found that there's a slight improvement. There's no significant improvement between a late fusion or early fusion, but we found better accuracy and sensitivity with late fusion algorithms. Yeah, this is latest work that we've conducted in the interspeech ISCA last year. And we've tried the multimodal fusion of vocal biomarkers using vector cross-attention. For this, we consider two modalities. Since we are working on first, we worked on voice sustained A vowel phonation. We wanted to check if adding another modality, meaning if we add another type or task of voice recordings like the text reading, could influence or not the performances of the algorithms. And for this, we used the vector cross-attention, and we found that it outperformed the single modalities by up to 4.2% and 7% relative increase. But here, the trade-off was that we have higher accuracy that comes with increased complexity and runtime. For the strengths, we studied the efficacy of fusing the voice and sociodemographic and clinical data. We studied the vector cross-attention that highlights the power of combining multiple voice modalities like the A-vowel phonation and text reading recordings. And we've used, for technical, we've used the pre-trained algorithms, and we achieved well-calibrated predictions thanks to the Breyer score that we've analyzed. But for the limitations, since we are working in healthcare, using embeddings or pre-trained algorithms or deep learning algorithms, of course, it can outperform the traditional features, but it lacks clinical interpretability, and here it's important to take into consideration. And the vector cross-attention increases the complexity and runtime. We need to also think about generalizability, since the population was limited in the homogeneity, and it needs validation in more diverse population. We also need to explore further multimodal integrations to enhance the predictive accuracy and clinical applicability, and we need to balance the interpretability over performance. Now for the key takeaways, I've shown two different applications showing we can work on vocal biomarkers with different outcomes, and it can achieve good performances, but we still need to take into consideration the different challenges, mainly the performance and the interpretability trade-off. The methodological challenges in collecting the voice and quality of the voice recordings, especially in real-life settings, but not only, even in controlled environment. There are like studies have different setups in controlled environment, different microphones, and they can't really reproduce or replicate what they found into other study that is also in clinically in controlled environments. There are some ethical concerns about data privacy and integration barriers. What we need to do next in the field mainly is to collect data from varied settings in order to enhance the robustness and identify biases, to target them and to work on them and hopefully eliminate them. To work on external validation, because currently we are working, as you saw, our samples, they are still limited for the deep learning algorithms, but also they are not really representative of the population with different diseases. We need to establish international guidelines. We need to think of multimodality, since voice only can't do the job. We need to also shift from traditional questionnaires, this is my own perspective and my own opinion, to shift from questionnaires that are already not that performant to real world and guided vocal recordings, to engage healthcare providers in order to increase their trust to implement this technology. And finally, it's important to secure fundings and money to work on this. This was it. Thank you so much for your attention, and we're open for questions.
Thank you. We and Abir. So the questions, open for questions.
Thank you. It was very interesting. I went yesterday to the Applied Machine Learning Day at EPFL, and there was a track on e-health. So it seems that there is a hype. It's a confirmation of the hype in many domains. So it's perfect fit. So my question is, how much information do you think there is in the vocal or in the audio signal to identify diabetes type 2? So because results are around 70, 80, and what would be acceptable performance in order to provide a tool to the people, maybe to be complementary to other kind of criterion for it to be appealing?
You can take it if you want.
So this is a really good question. It's weird. All right, this is a very good question because you need to put the performances align with the clinical objectives. For type 2 diabetes, we are not aiming to replace an official type 2 diabetes diagnosis. We will never replace a glycemic level assessment that you can do in the private lab to have a full, clear diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. The objective here is to develop a screening solution. As Abir showed, half of the population worldwide doesn't even know that they have diabetes. So the challenge now is to improve the screening solutions. Voice alone, we can expect maybe one day to have like 80% of accuracy or precision, but aiming for much more is unrealistic. But I think it's okay because we are not trying to aim for a 99% accuracy diagnosis solution for type 2 diabetes. This will never be the case with voice. However, if we can detect maybe 20% more, 30% more of undiagnosed cases, because we have a highly scalable solution that we can deploy on everyone's smartphone to facilitate the screening, then we have the solution we want. So that's the challenge. And yes, to reply to the first part of the question, with the data we have right now, we can expect probably between 80 and maybe 85% of accuracy at the maximum, because the mechanisms behind between voice and diabetes are there. We have some biological evidence. We need to grow this to make this evidence even bigger. We have now projects where we will really deep dive into the biological mechanisms between diabetes and voice. But what is clear is that some features are not specific to diabetes, and we won't ever achieve this 90+ accuracy.
Thank you for your talk. I as well attended your lecture yesterday,
And I
and
saw your poster.
yeah, thanks to your talk, I got a huge crowd in my poster working in the similar direction. So my question is, when we try to get these algorithms to the market, usually we need to have a clinician in the loop, right? And how do we convince these clinicians to agree with our algorithm? How challenging is it, and what's the right way to go ahead with that?
The challenge with engaging with clinicians is to make them understand how it works. And that is very important to show the biological evidence between voice and the condition you are working on. They want to know how physiologically is voice related with the different symptoms and pathophysiological mechanisms of your condition of interest. So that means you need to have data. And right now we don't have them. Right now we have data sets with voice recordings and yes or no, I have Parkinson's disease, for instance, and that's it. We need to go to the next level and have really better data, more in-depth analysis, and then we will gain the trust of clinicians. And there is a second aspect of this, is that we need to work more together from the very beginning. You need to embark clinicians even before the conception of your research hypothesis, even before the conception of the data collection. This is where you will have clinicians on board, they will work with you. And this is what we try to do, for instance, with diabetes now. With the next projects, they are part of it since day one, and they help us to understand and walk this through.
Thank you.
Thank you for your talk. I'm looking at this from the user's perspective. So in continuation of his question, how to convince people to use this technology? How do you see the future of this technology, especially as people are getting more aware about the privacy, security issues, and what could be done with this recorded data of them?
Okay, two answers to your question. First, the same as with clinicians, you need to embark patients or end users from the very beginning. We didn't talk about this, but on top of all the data-driven research we are doing, we are also implementing what we call mixed method projects with qualitative research with patients. In the field of type 1 diabetes, we have conducted a study to understand how they would be open to integrate this in their daily lives, in their daily monitoring of the disease. And at least for type 1 diabetes, they are ready, that's for sure. They are open to voice technologies. And the only limitations we have observed are around the data and how we will analyze the data. So the privacy, security by design, all of these factors are very important. And that's a very important takeaway for us to increase the communication and transparency about all the vocal biomarkers we can develop, to explain in very broad and simple terms how it works, how we are processing the data, how they are stored, yes, in a very secured fashion. And
there's GDPR. We are complying to GDPR, so we can't, for example, keep the data for too much time already in our clouds or something. So already we can communicate about that. And yeah, the consent form is also something that can increase the trust of patients to get into these kind of studies. And yeah, as Guy said, we need to engage them since the beginning with the clinicians to to design studies and work together on it.
And maybe just a last comment on this is we are also engaging in a lot of talks with society in general. We are increasing awareness of voice technologies to explain to everyone that this is coming, so that once this will reach the market, they won't be afraid by a new fancy technology because they will be already exposed with the concept, with our voice, yes, it's important. And once you explain this to any patient, they start to understand, of course, yes, in my voice, there are some important information that can be used for health monitoring. It's non-invasive, it's scalable, it can be deployed in low resource settings. So when you explain everything, it usually goes well.
Thank you.
So hi, thank you for your talk. I want to ask something for the first part of the presentation. So how far we are on having personalized medicine, like right away on like pharmacies and so on? Like I know there are some small businesses that will produce like personalized composition or types of medicines that they're not in the market, and they will prepare you like exactly something, no AI. So what will be like the next thing from the project you're working in that you could see straightforward to go soon or in the medium time?
So there are already ongoing projects, not even at the research stage, really in clinical practice, where there is this precision medicine or precision health approach applied. I mentioned cancer in the very beginning. There are some targeted drugs that work for just very small specific subtypes of cancer, and this is already a precision medicine approach. But it's just a tiny portion of what we would expect doing in the future, because right now we want to target everyone, not just a few specific gene mutations for a subgroup of cancer. What we want to achieve now, and there are some ongoing initiatives, is to develop subgroups. We will never reach in the next years a full individualization of care. This is unrealistic, it's a dream. However, we can define some subgroups where we stratify the entire population into 4, 5, 6 subgroups of interest, and then you can try to have better approaches, better targeted interventions. We are seeing, for instance, again, in the field of diabetes, we are seeing this now. We are refining. Before it was type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes, and that's all. Now we have subgroups of type 2 diabetes. We have subgroups of type 1 diabetes. We have pre-diabetes for type 2. We have even before type 1 diabetes, we have the asymptomatic type 1 diabetes. So now we are really refining the understanding of the disease, and there are drugs that are targeting some specific subgroups. So this is coming. We have really clear examples. And the final thing I wanted to mention for the use of AI in this, there are companies, it's not our business at all, but I know that there are some companies using AI for protein development and drug target development. This is exactly how you can expect the next generation of drugs, the next generation of therapies that will be adapted, tailored to specific profiles of patients.
Any other questions? Any online? Are there any questions? No. Okay, so let's thank Guy and Abir again. Thank you very much for a wonderful talk.